This is the Late Round Podcast with your host, JJ Zacharisa.
What's up, everyone? It's JJ Zacharisa, and this is episode 799 of the Late Round Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by FanDuel. Thanks for tuning in. I posted my rest of season rankings yesterday to the Late Round Fantasy Football Patreon, along with a data dump that I post each week. And I also did a waiver wire Q&A with patrons. You can be part of the community by checking out lateround.com and clicking Patreon. Head there to learn more. Today's a 10 Trends episode. Let's get to it. The tight end position in week 1 was an absolute mess, as it usually is. It was just more of a mess without Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews around. One player who really surprised was Durham Smythe. He finished the week as tight end 16. He caught 3 balls for 44 yards against the Chargers, accounting for a 16% target share. Most importantly, he ran the most routes on the Dolphins. More than Tyreek Hill, more than Jalen Waddle. He was a full-blown tight end 1 usage-wise. I don't know if he's going to be reliable enough, but it's a trend worth noting. I got a lot of questions about Rachaad White this week. He was close to being a 15 transactions buy for me. Yeah, he was inefficient on the ground. He had just a 35% success rate. But Sean Tucker, with his limited touches, didn't have a ton of success either. He had a 40% success rate. The bottom line is that White had great usage overall. He played almost 80% of Tampa Bay's offensive snaps. He ran the 4th most routes on the team, behind their 2 stud wideouts and Cade Otton. Better days should be ahead for White. The offensive line still looks like a problem, but it's important to not look at individual running back numbers without giving those numbers context. It's rough for all the running backs there, not just Rachaad White. We're going to need Russell Wilson to get the ball downfield a little bit more if the Broncos are going to support some pass catchers in fantasy football this year. In week 1, he threw it 15 or more air yards in just 5.9% of his pass attempts. That was only higher than Desmond Ridder and Zach Wilson. And we know why Ridder and Wilson aren't heaving it deep. That obviously led to one of the lowest ADOTs in football. This ties directly to the fact that the Broncos had a running back target share on Sunday of about 38%. I'd expect that to regress moving forward, which would move those deep ball numbers up. But it was a conservative approach in week 1 for sure. Speaking of running back target shares, as I mentioned on the 15 transactions episode, the Falcons were first in the league in week 1 with a 53% share. The team in second was a surprising one. It was Chicago. Bears running backs had a 44% target share. Last year, they ranked 24th in the league with a 17.3% running back target share. We generally see below average numbers in that department from teams with mobile quarterbacks. But this is one to monitor. Game script and a conservative approach fueled a lot of this for Justin Fields and the Bears on Sunday. The tight end with the highest target share in week 1 was Zach Ertz. It was 33.3%. He caught 6 of 10 targets, but he only had 21 yards. He was the tight end 12 in PPR on the week. Ertz did run well ahead of Trey McBride, though. He tied for the team lead with 30 routes run. McBride was at 8. So Ertz looks like the dude in Arizona. He's an okay ad in deeper leagues as a result. I just don't know if there's going to be enough of a ceiling for him. It was a really rough day for the Seattle offense on Sunday. They tied Atlanta for the fewest pass and rush attempts in football. They just couldn't get anything going. That's why we can look at peripherals, though. Because when game environments then get better, the players who have these good peripherals will dominate. And the peripherals were really, really favorable, despite the box score, for Kenneth Walker. Walker ended the day with a 71% running back rush share and a 21% target share. He was only able to hit those marks in 1 game last year. And he was the only running back in week 1 to have a 70% running back rush share and a 20% target share. I'd expect Zach Charbonnet to get more work as the season goes on, but it was actually a very good week for Kenneth Walker. He's more of a buy than a sell for sure. This is a friendly reminder that how teams score touchdowns, that matters. It regresses. In week 1, we saw the Ravens, Cowboys, and Rams score 3 offensive touchdowns. All of those touchdowns came via the ground. When you're quickly glancing at fantasy points and box scores, You're going to think, man, these quarterbacks aren't that great. But the way teams score touchdowns fluctuates. A couple of short scores from Matthew Stafford would have totally changed the way that people are viewing him in fantasy. So keep that in mind. I'd expect those numbers to regress as the season goes on. According to fantasylife.com and their data tools, which you guys can access for free, by the way, the leader in air yard share was Kyle freaking Pitts. And it wasn't close. He saw 89% of Atlanta's air yards when Nico Collins was in second with 64%. Now, I wouldn't be going out and buying Kyle Pitts given the way Arthur Smith is running that offense. Nico Collins, that's a different story. Miles Sanders had okay peripheral numbers in week 1 with 2/3 of Carolina's rushes and a 19% target share. One problem, though, is that he still split a good bit of time with Chuba Hubbard. Hubbard had just 7 fewer routes run than Sanders, and he had a 36% snap rate to Sanders' 58%. Sanders also saw half of his targets when the game was out of reach in the fourth quarter. Now, it's good that he was on the field during that time, but there's definitely some volatility to his profile right now. I've basically got him ranked where I had him ranked before the season, but his usage is a trend to monitor into week 2. The last trend this week is about the quarterback position in fantasy football as a whole, and how much it just sucked in week 1. Your top 6 quarterbacks by ADP this year were usually some combination of Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Justin Fields. Sometimes Justin Herbert was thrown in there, but that's generally how things went down. Among those 6 quarterbacks, the top one in points in week 1 was Mahomes with 19.5. This is for standard scoring, minus 2 points per interception. Josh Allen was QB 23. Lamar Jackson, QB 27. Jalen Hurts, QB 19. Joe Burrow, QB 30. Justin Fields, QB 16. I usually don't buy quarterbacks in redraft. But if you can buy sincerely low on these guys, I don't think that's a terrible idea. We knew regression was going to hit, but this is not regression. What we saw in week 1, that's not regression. That's a clear underperformance. That's it for today's show, though. Thanks to all of you for listening. If you've yet subscribed to the Late Round Fantasy Football Podcast, make sure you are by searching for it pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter, @LateRoundQB. And as always, check out the Instagram account, @LateRoundFF. I'm posting things on that account every single day. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'll talk to you tomorrow with the Weekly Sleeper Show.